Scorpio, listen to me with your whole heart for a moment, because this is not just another message floating through your feed. This is that strange chill you feel when the universe whispers your name. Someone wants another chance with you. Someone is circling your energy, replaying conversations in their mind, hovering over your name on their phone, writing and deleting messages, staring at your pictures, wondering how on earth they lost access to the very soul that once would have crossed oceans just to answer a simple, "Are you awake?" You can feel it, can't you? That invisible pull in the air, that heaviness in your chest for no reason, those flashes of memories that come out of nowhere when you're finally at peace. It isn't nostalgia. It isn't random. This is the vibration of someone trying to get back into a space God has already moved you beyond. The one thing they still don't understand, Scorpio, is that they are chasing a version of you that simply does not exist anymore. Once you truly close a cycle, you don't rewind it. You bury it, sanctify it as a lesson, and rise as someone they can no longer reach, no matter how loudly they knock. There was a time when this person's name could send your heart racing, when their messages could derail your whole day, when you would check your phone obsessively just to see if they had finally decided to choose you clearly, loudly, fully. There was a time when you accepted half answers, mixed signals, long silences, and crumbs disguised as love, because you believed that if you were patient enough, loyal enough, forgiving enough, they would eventually grow into the person you needed them to be. You tried to understand their wounds. You made excuses for their inconsistencies. You gave them the kind of emotional depth that most people never experience in their lifetime. And what did they give you back? Doubt, anxiety, the feeling that you were never quite enough, never fully chosen, always in competition with their distractions, their fears, their ego. They thought your heart would always be on standby, like a light left on in the window just in case they ever felt lonely enough to come home. They believed you would always be there, waiting, because you always had been. That was their first mistake. The second was thinking that the day would never come when you would finally choose yourself. That day did come, even if it didn't look dramatic from the outside. Maybe there was no big fight, no final speech, no cinematic goodbye. Maybe it was just one quiet moment when something inside you finally snapped into clarity and you whispered to yourself, "I deserve better than this confusion. I deserve better than begging for the bare minimum." You stopped reaching out. You stopped explaining your feelings to ears that never truly listened. You stopped trying to resuscitate a connection that only had a pulse when it served them. You didn't shut down out of hatred, you shut down out of self-respect. And that is exactly when the spiritual shift took place. That is when God, who had been watching you pour yourself into an emotional desert, finally said, "Enough. It's time to lift you to a place this person cannot follow." While you were grieving the loss of what you wished it could have been, heaven was already rearranging your path. There were nights you cried yourself to sleep, feeling abandoned, feeling foolish, feeling like you had lost something irreplaceable. But what you actually lost was the version of yourself that thought chaos was proof of passion. While you were learning to sleep without checking your phone, your spirit was being unhooked from someone who was never meant to be the final destination, only a lesson on the road. Now this person feels the imbalance. They feel the vacuum left by your absence, the silence where your warmth used to be, the peace that replaced the drama you once tolerated. For them, this is a crisis. For you, it is healing. They want another chance, not because they suddenly became capable of the love you always deserved, but because they can feel that you are truly gone, not physically maybe, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. There was a time when they could send one message and you would rush to respond. There was a time when their attention felt like sunlight after a long winter. Now their energy bounces off a version of you that is no longer shaped by their neglect. You've outgrown the pedestal they put themselves on. You've outgrown the fantasy. You've outgrown the story where your worth depends on whether or not they choose you, and as they begin to realize they no longer have the same power over your emotions, panic sets in. That panic is what they will call realizing your value. That panic is what they will dress up as "I've changed." That panic is what will drive them to your door, to your messages, to your dreams, searching for any opening, any crack in the wall that might still exist. They will come with carefully chosen words. "I miss you. I've made mistakes. No one understands me like you did. I didn't know what I had until I lost it." They will mention inside jokes, specific memories, moments that once felt sacred to you. They will remind you of the way you laughed together, how intense the connection felt, how "no one else has ever made me feel this way." They will romanticize the good and conveniently blur the bad. And for a moment, Scorpio, your heart may tremble. A part of you may remember the softness, the spark, the magnetic pull that once felt impossible to break. This is where your new self must stand up and speak, because you didn't forget the sleepless nights. You didn't forget the times you cried in silence, trying to make sense of their mixed signals. You didn't forget the days you felt invisible, even while you were right next to them. You didn't forget how small you felt every time you were treated like an option instead of a priority. You forgave, yes, because that's who you are. You let go of resentment because you wanted peace. But forgiveness is not an invitation to repeat the same pain. Forgiveness is closure, not a contract to re-enroll in the same lesson. God has moved you beyond them by changing what you are willing to tolerate, by upgrading your standards, by removing the illusion that this is the only deep connection you will ever experience. You may think you are just over it, but that emotional detachment you feel now is spiritual protection. That strange calm that replaced your old obsession is not indifference. It is evidence that heaven has done surgery on your heart. You still feel, you still care in your own way, but you no longer need their validation like oxygen. And that, Scorpio, is exactly what terrifies them. Before they could come and go as they pleased, knowing that no matter how far they drifted, you would be there when they returned. Now they sense that coming back doesn't guarantee access. Their fear is not just losing you, it is facing themselves without your devotion to distract them from their own emptiness. The ego hates losing control. So here they are, knocking. The universe is allowing them to try, not to test your weakness, but to show you how much you've grown. This is not about punishment. This is about clarity. When they appear with all their words and tears and late realizations, you will be given the opportunity to see them with new eyes, without the fog of longing. You may notice how their excuses no longer satisfy you, how their charm no longer hypnotizes you, how their promises sound vague compared to the stability your soul is now craving. You might even feel compassion, because you understand their wounds, their fears, the inner child who never learned how to hold love without breaking it. But compassion is not the same as reconciliation. You can feel sorry for them and still know they are not meant to walk this next chapter by your side, because that is the whole point. You are no longer standing in the same place. You are not rejecting them out of cruelty. You are simply honoring the distance God has already created between your vibration and theirs. Like two radio stations on different frequencies, you can't tune into each other the way you once did. And if you tried to force it, if you tried to squeeze yourself back into that old dynamic, you would have to shrink. You would have to quiet your intuition. You would have to dim your standards. You would have to betray the version of you that fought hard to be born. That's too high a price to pay just to prove you can still be chosen by someone who only understood your value once God took you out of their reach. So what do you do when they come back? You breathe. You remember the nights you begged the universe for a sign, for an answer, for healing. This is it. You remember the way your chest used to tighten when you saw their name on your screen, because you never knew if it meant peace or more confusion. You remember how heavy your body felt when you tried to fall asleep in a relationship where you were constantly unsure of where you stood. You remember the day you finally started to laugh again without them. The day your energy began to rise, the opportunities, friendships, inner calm that started pouring in once that door closed. You remember that your life did not crumble without them. It actually began. Then you speak from that place, maybe out loud, maybe only in your spirit. I wish you healing. I forgive what happened. I release you, but I will not go back. There is a very unique kind of freedom in that moment, Scorpio. The freedom of knowing you no longer need what once held you hostage. That kind of freedom is holy. It is the proof that God did not move you forward just to drag you backward at the first knock. You are being asked to stand where you have been elevated. This doesn't mean you must be cold, cruel, or unkind. You can be gentle and still be firm. You can say, I hope you find the love you're looking for, but it isn't here anymore. You can choose silence if words are too heavy. You can block, unfollow, or simply let the conversation fade. Not because you're running, but because you are rooted. You've learned that your peace is not negotiable. Your heart is not a revolving door. Your spirit is not a playground for someone who only remembers your worth when they're lonely. There is a powerful spiritual law at work now. When you refuse to return to what hurt you, you break the contract with the version of yourself that accepted that hurt as normal. In that moment, you are not just saying no to a person, you are saying no to an entire pattern. And when a pattern ends, a new destiny begins. Your future relationships will be built on the standards you are enforcing right now. By refusing to reopen this door, you are telling the universe, I am ready for love that does not require me to abandon myself. You are declaring that you will meet people who choose you the first time, who don't need to lose you in order to realize your value, who don't need crisis to understand commitment. Somewhere ahead of you on your timeline, there is a moment where you will look back at this exact situation and smile with quiet gratitude. You will realize that if you had said yes when your spirit already knew the answer was no, you would have delayed blessings you haven't even seen yet. You would have postponed the life you are meant to live. What feels like a simple choice, opening or not opening a single door, is actually a spiritual crossroads. One path leads you back into the same maze. The other leads you into wide, open space. And in that open space, Scorpio, it will be safe to receive the kind of love that doesn't make you question your worth. Before we close, let this be whispered gently into your soul. This message is a symbolic mirror, a kind of spiritual story offered to help you reflect on your own journey. It is not a fixed prediction carved in stone, but a contemplative path laid out for the heart that feels called to walk it. If these words resonate with you, keep the pieces that feel like confirmation and nourishment. If they do not, allow them to drift past you like a wave that was never meant to reach your shore. You are always free to decide, to choose, to discern what truly belongs in your life. The power has never left your hands. It was only waiting for you to remember it. God has already moved you beyond the version of you who needed their approval to feel worthy. Now the question is no longer, will they come back? The real question is, will you go back to meet them where you no longer live? Your spirit already knows the answer. It's written in the peace you feel when you imagine a future that does not include the old chaos. It's written in the quiet strength that rises inside you when you think, I've survived worse than letting this go. They may still want another chance, they may still knock, they may still cry and promise and insist, but heaven has already upgraded your address. You are not at that door anymore. You have been moved. You have been protected. You have been invited into a life where you are not begging to be chosen, because you finally chose yourself.